Welcome to New Tracks Modeling. New Tracks provides unique mentoring opportunities to enhance your modeling skills by connecting with talented modelers and manufacturers from around the globe who generously share their knowledge and artistic expertise. Build your confidence, refine modeling techniques, and share your projects with a supportive community of fellow modelers, all while enjoying the world's most rewarding hobby. Join us every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern on Zoom and YouTube for our free live program. Missed a program? No problem. Individual show segments are uploaded to YouTube for convenient on-demand viewing. Be sure to connect with the New Tracks community by joining the New Tracks Facebook page, where you can interact with other modelers and see what they are modeling. Visit our website at www.newtracksmodeling.com, where you'll find information about upcoming events and the latest issue of our magazine, New Tracks Modeler. New Tracks Modeler features articles from builds on the show, exciting new products, and other great articles. And now, here is the host of New Tracks Modeling, Tom Farrell.
Good evening, and welcome to New Tracks Modeling, streaming live on Zoom and YouTube, just as we do every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're glad you're here, whether you're a seasoned modeler, new to the hobby, or enjoy the creativity and camaraderie of the model railroading community. We welcome you. This broadcast, along with our 5 other platforms, including the program you're watching live now, our New Tracks website, our Facebook page, our New Tracks Mentoring Scholarship Program, and our New Tracks Modeler digital magazine, is part of a broader vision created by Jim Kello, NMR and NTM. That's acronyms for Master Model Railroader and New Tracks Mentor. All platforms are offered free of charge and are supported by a dedicated team of volunteers who are passionate about model railroading. Before we board the first-class train tonight, we want to sincerely thank Brennan's Model Railroading for sponsoring this evening's program.
Tonight's New Tracks Modeling Meetup is sponsored by Brennan's Model Railroading. For over 25 years, Brennan's Model Railroading has been offering unique products focused on the O-scale market. Their flagship product, Brennan's Better Ballast, was an instant hit and continues to be the industry leader. The prototypical size and natural color blend of real crushed granite make it the choice for discerning modelers. Since then, Brennan's has developed a complementary line of natural ground cover materials. Brennan's also has craftsman kits that anyone can build. The complete photographically illustrated instructions assume you've never done this before, and explain in step-by-step detail how to create an outstanding model. The Frank Ellison Tribute series of kits are amazing additions to any layout. These kits take Frank Ellison's scratch-built iconic structures to a new level using modern methods and materials with Dennis Brennan's additional details and amazing instructions. See the complete line of products on the Brennan's Model Railroading website. Use the QR code to visit.
I encourage all of our viewers to check out Brennan's Model Railroading. Go to his website. He supports the show. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have a show. And although our expenses are relatively minimal, we do have expenses, and sponsors like Brennan really make it work. So now let's take a look at what's coming down the line on tonight's show. We've got a very packed show this evening. We're going to start off with one of our scholarship winners, Aiden Kinney. Bob Davidson, our the executive chairman of the scholarship program, will interview Aiden. And then we're going to move on to Steve Sherrill and We're going to move on to Kevin Macomber, personal friend of mine. He's going to do a very, very unique presentation. We call it post-war scratch building, or you might even say Depression era scratch building. Then we're going to move on to portable power supplies by Bob Geldmacher and Steve Sherrill. Then our very own Phil Edholm, the producer of the show, is going to have a presentation on 3D filament printing, some tips. And then Earl Hackett modeling Thurman, West Virginia on HO scale. That's going to be a very interesting program as well. I don't know if any of you have ever been to Thurman, but it's sort of iconic. And then we're going to finish with David on kit bashing an ON30 locomotive. So we have a very comprehensive and broad program this evening on many scales, many topics, and I encourage all our presenters to hold to their time so we can get through everything. Before we roll into our first station, I'd like to spotlight the New Tracks Modeling Scholarship Program, short video, and then a few words about this initiative from Bob Davidson, the executive chairman of the program.
The New Tracks Modeling Mentoring Scholarship is the only national scholarship for model railroaders from a volunteer nonprofit organization. For academic year 2025-26, we are awarding 3 $2,000 scholarships for model railroaders pursuing a STEAM degree. We hope to award a similar number of scholarships for the 2026-27 academic year. We believe it is critical to support the next generation of model railroaders. You can support the New Tracks Modeling Mentoring Scholarship by donating online using the Zephy platform or directly by check. All donations are tax deductible.
And now a few words from Bob, and then we'll on the scholarship itself, and then we'll go right to Aiden, one of our winners, and Bob himself. Bob?
All right.
Good evening.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, as the video said, actually this year, for those who have not been made aware, we were able to offer 4 $2,000 scholarships, bringing our total of scholarships offered in the 3 years to $15,000. So that's pretty impressive. And thanks to our sponsors and to all the individuals who have given so generously. We are already making plans for next year for the 2026-27 academic year, and we hope that we'll be able to meet or even surpass what we did this year. So again, thanks. And in that vein, I would like to give a shout out to John Sacerdoti and the folks at the Amherst Railway Society. They have already made their gift for the 26-27 academic year of $1,000. That just came in. We were the recipient of a grant for next year. So we're very appreciative of them. And to all of our sponsors, corporate sponsors, we look forward to keeping you in the New Tracks Mentoring Scholarship family for years to come. So with that said, as I said, we had 4 winners this year. Last week, we were able to interview one, and tonight we have Aiden Kinney. Aiden joins us from Peyton, Colorado, and he's just a remarkable young modeler, and we welcome him. Welcome, Aiden. Are you unmuted? You have to unmute yourself, please. Can you unmute? I see you, but I don't hear you. Pat, can you unmute Aiden?
No, he's got to unmute himself. You got to look down at the
Okay.
bottom of the screen. There should be something that looks like a little microphone.
Yeah,
And it should have a
microphone.
splash through it.
Well,
That's the video. It's right next to
the
that.
video should be the audio.
Aiden, you're not passing the test for a STEAM student.
He's a modeler, not a video engineer.
Science, technology.
Oh boy.
Where'd he go? Oh, there he is.
Looks like Penn State for him.
Aiden, you need
Aiden,
to
turn on your
start.
video and turn on your sound.
Yeah, you need to start
Yeah,
your
you need to
video.
down at the bottom of the screen. There's the little button with the looks like a microphone. It should have a red slash through it.
And look
There's
from
2 of
his
them down there.
from his photo.
There you go.
Oh yeah, I don't see him yet.
He
Yeah,
turned it
no.
off. I thought he did.
It looks like you might
Hello.
be on the phone.
Yes.
I'm sorry, we're having some technical difficulties there.
Okay.
Okay, well,
We'll
we still
forgive you.
don't see you, but
We see him now. He can be spotted.
There he
okay,
is.
there we
He's
go.
on a different
No,
system.
sorry
There
about
we go.
that.
Different system.
Welcome, Aiden.
Thank you.
He must be on the art.
Fortunately, Aiden is not majoring in videography when he attends the University of Colorado. Why don't you tell everybody, first off, just a little bit about what you plan on studying when you head off to college next year?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, when I am going off to CU Boulder this next semester, and I will be studying aerospace engineering.
And one of the things in the essay you wrote for the scholarship, you kind of made a comparison between model railroading and aerospace engineering. And can you share that with everyone?
Yeah, I think I was talking a little bit about something about how the past and the history of model railroading and just railroading in general is so fascinating to me. But it's really cool to be able to see that I'm about to go into aerospace engineering and how that's very futuristic and very forward looking. And so the two are kind of colliding in my world and just kind of how cool it is that I can look into the past and see what others have done and take those just things that I've learned from others and just use it in the future of aerospace.
That's fantastic. Um, Now you were one of the what we now call the Thomas the Tank Engine class this year. It seemed all four of you talked about how you were introduced to model railroading through Thomas the Tank Engine shows, but you also spoke a lot about your grandpa.
Yes,
Tell us
my
please
grandfather
about.
was very dear to me. He was the one who got me into this whole hobby, and so I'm very grateful for him because we did everything together. We worked on my own layout. He helped me start it, and we went on special trips into Colorado to go see old railroad grades and stuff. So he was pretty amazing.
That's fantastic. And you are now, as Tom Farrell will attest, modeling in the greatest scale ever, ON 30. Is that right?
Actually, I am not. My
Oh,
layout that I have is an N scale currently, but 0 I would love to get into it someday. That would be amazing.
okay. Tell us a little bit about your modeling, what you enjoy doing, and what your approach is to modeling.
Sure. Yeah. So living in Colorado, I love all of the narrow gauge Colorado railroad history. It's just so fascinating to me. The Rio Grande is one of my favorite railroads. And I think I've really enjoyed in my modeling being able to research stuff from Colorado, but then I can actually go to those places or I can look up things and see like I don't know, I can get more details because I live here. So it's just been so fascinating to learn more about all of the railroads here. And I think you asked my about my approach to modeling.
Yeah, well, you mentioned again in your essay, you talk about photorealism as being kind of an impetus in in your modeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I was saying, I a lot of the time we'll use photos from different mines that I've seen in Colorado or different things that just help me to get an idea of the full picture of what the railroad was doing back in the 1900s. And for me, I love the super detailed stuff. So I will analyze photos and read articles and just dive really deep into it just to get like you said, the most photorealistic model that I can.
Right. Now you do structures and scenery as well.
Yeah, I've gotten into that a little bit. I don't have too much time, but in the time that I do have, I enjoy. I'll scratch build some things because there's not a lot offered in scale, but I love scratch building and just building fun. I guess like the Colorado Rocky Mountains terrain is one of my favorites.
Excellent. And what about operations?
Yeah, so as far as operations, currently I don't have a functioning model or railroad going on, but oh, I love any kind of operation.
Right.
And
'Cause
like
you
I
had talked,
said,
yeah, you had talked in your essay about how you developed some cards to put together consists and stuff. And
yeah. Actually, I got that from my grandfather, who got that from his dad, I think. But yeah, when I would hang out with him, it was just so intriguing. He had like hundreds of these cards, and each one had a specific car that went with it, and then you would put it to where you're going to go. And so it didn't follow any specific um realistic operations, but it was just a really fun way to um try and pick your brain on how to do different operations.
that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Now, one of the other things that you mentioned in you kind of had a bucket list wish that you wanted to do something with a certain locomotive. Why don't you tell us about it? Because
Yeah.
I want Jeff Jordan to hear this.
Okay, yeah. So I wrote in my essay, I think I wrote, I one day I would love to drive a steam engine. I that is one of the coolest things that I would ever want to do. And I want to ride any kind of narrow gauge Colorado steam locomotive, but I specifically said in my essay I want to ride a K36 Rio Grande locomotive. And I will say this last week, my grandmother surprised me and we went up to Durango, Colorado, and I got to ride in the cab of K36 number 480. That was a dream come true. That was the coolest thing I've ever done.
That is very, very cool.
It was
That's
so
cool.
cool.
Wow. Tom, did you want to chime in with any questions for Aiden?
No, I'm excited that we have the youth in model railroading, and interesting enough, Aiden, I started out in N scale, and way back in 1967, they brought N scale over here in 1965
Okay.
from Germany, and I modeled an N scale from 1967 to 2005, and then I switched to ON30. So there is hope for you. And I'm excited that you applied for the scholarship. How did you find out about the scholarship? Just curious.
Yeah, so I think I was just Googling different scholarships that I could apply for. And I ended up finding New Tracks. And so I jumped on it and I applied, and I am so honored that I was awarded this scholarship. I'm so thankful.
Right. And then what do you think we as a group, obviously if you look at the folks that are on this program tonight, what can we do to better attract young modelers to not only New Tracks, but into the hobby itself? What turned you
Oh,
on?
that's a great question. I think railroading is such a unique and amazing piece of our history. And to me, one of the biggest things was learning about the history. And I just find it so fascinating. But I think, I don't know if we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago or you guys were on this Zoom, but um, utilizing some of the like upcoming, I don't know, things like AI or different things like that to try and attract the younger generation. I think is really fascinating, especially with what all it can do. And especially, like I mentioned, history, research. I have absolutely utilized it within the last couple of days just to learn things. And so I guess, I don't know, I think that would be the biggest thing I could suggest.
What do you think the hobby would look like in if you had to? What do you think we might see in 20 years or 30 years when or even 40 years? What do you think? Do you think model railroading, what would that look like in your
Yeah. Um, well, so like I just said, I think, I don't know, I think there will be a lot more use for AI and just being able to utilize it for, I don't know, all things railroad related. But I think um, being able to, like you guys are doing, pass down this amazing hobby to others and kind of share it with others, kind of like my grandfather did for me, um, will absolutely help to continue bringing more people into the hobby, especially younger people. And I think, honestly, in the next 20 years, there could be a lot of amazing young modelers who will be doing some amazing things for this hobby.
What would you think of this, let's say in 20 years, AI, if it doesn't kill us? If you said to AI, um, design me, in fact, it'd probably be all one step, print me a Prairie locomotive from 1895 in O scale, and everything will be integrated and it'll just bang, out it will come. Do you think that that could come to a realization?
Man, that would be insane. I think for me, the things that I would want to use it for would be researching all the small details, especially in Colorado history, where you can't find that anywhere. You can't find it online. You can't find it in books. Just getting the small details, and yeah, being able to just bam, have it print something that isn't a big commercial product. Wow, that would be so cool.
I'm guessing in 20 years it would print it, paint it, weather it. You tell it all these parameters verbally,
Right.
and out it would come.
Man,
I mean, isn't that that's a distinct possibility? Yeah.
that would be wow, that would be crazy.
I think that's where we're going. It's
Totally
just my,
crazy.
in 25 years when I'm gone and you say, that Farrell was right.
Well, Aiden, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you obviously for applying and just for your enthusiasm for the hobby. We're just so how happy and proud of the class that we had this year, and we wish you all the best in your studies. And we hope you'll keep in touch with us here at New Tracks. We're here every Wednesday.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I will absolutely keep in touch. Thank you guys.
Study
Wonderful.
hard.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you again.
Next week for everybody, we'll have Brock Durham, who is a repeat awardee of the scholarship. Brock won last year, and he'll be a senior at the Citadel, and he'll be joining us next week on the program. So we look forward to that.
Well,
Thank
next
you,
up,
Tom.
thank you, Bob. Great job on the interview and great, great candidate there. Winner there, not a candidate anymore. Next up, we have Kevin Macomber, a personal friend of mine. He's going to talk about post-war scratch building or Depression era scratch building. But before we have Kevin on, I'd like to run the My Build video, talk about that, and then we'll have Kevin.
Don't miss the monthly New Tracks Modeling My Build event. My Build is where the modelers of New Tracks show what they have been building. See amazing modeling with some My Builds featuring specific topics for modeling. If you would like to have your models included in the My Build, please email your modeling photos to chriscourse@railrunner130@hotmail.com. If you are a first-time My Build participant, please include a photo of yourself.
And now a few words from Chris Course on what's going on.
Thanks,
My
Tom.
Build.
All right. So what we've got coming up, August 20th, anything goes. The submission deadline for that is August 17th. Whatever you're working on, whatever you've got to share, we'd greatly appreciate seeing. And even if it's not complete, send us photos, and we always we do like to watch the progress of projects if you are so inclined. And then in September, we will have our first challenge for the next voting cycle, which is backdrops. So if you have submissions for that, go ahead and send those in to us, and we'll get those in the slideshow. But remember, please try to stick to the deadlines, because the last couple of months we've been hand jamming stuff in last minute, and I really don't want to I don't want to miss anybody, and I want to give them the justice that your photos deserve. So please have those to me by the submission deadlines. That helps out greatly with not only me serving you guys, but also serving your photos to a degree that they deserve to be seen. And that's about it for me, Tom.
And I want to remind everybody that a neat way to get on the show is to be on the My Build program, one of our most popular segments on the show. All you have to do is take photographs of your work, submit them to Chris. He'll incorporate them into his program, and you just need to talk to your slides. If you're uncomfortable talking to your slides, just provide the text and he'll talk to your slides. But it's a great way to get on a live program that reaches hundreds, potentially thousands of people. And we're all about mentoring and sharing our skills. If you have something that you want to show and share, that's a great way to do it. So now I'd like to introduce Kevin Macomber. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tom.
I'm going to do a quick introduction here, something that, can everybody see that? He asked.
Yes. You can throw it in slideshow mode.
It's not working or what?
I see it very well, Tom.
Okay. So Kevin is just wrote a book, Walking from the Shadows, his journey with post-traumatic stress disorder. Kevin was served his country, and he spent basically the past summer, maybe even longer, trying to save our veterans. I think every 22 seconds or something like that, a veteran commits suicide. He single-handedly is trying to do what he can for that. Spend a minute on that, Kevin, and then we'll go to the show.
This is, this is relevant. Everybody asks, how did you get into the model railroading? And I think, for most guys, I'm 61, but most guys north of me, I think the segue was probably a Lionel train set, particularly at Christmas time. That is not how it happened for me. I came into it, I was actually looking to learn how to paint. I wanted to learn how to paint, just paintings like an artist would. And what happened was I couldn't find anybody to teach me. And almost in parallel to it, I stumbled across one of the original Owen 30 engines from the Christmas Village. And I said, what the heck is this? I had no idea what it was. And I said, this is about the coolest thing I've ever seen. And fast forward, that's how I got into Owen 30. Tonight's presentation happened probably because of Al Judy. We're going to go into that, but if I was to say I learned one thing from Al Judy the most, and he told me how important it was, whatever style you pick up and you go forward with, is be consistent and stick with it. And that's sort of what happened. When you're in Owen 30, you're really forced into compressing everything. You compress the height, you compress the depth of your structures. You can get away with a little bit wider structures. But even in the buildings, you sometimes have to compress some of the taller floors, to make them fit into your build. And that's what happened. I started finding all these kits. While I like some of the Craftsman kits, almost none of them fit my layout, at least what I was trying to accomplish. And that was even some of the old school Owen 3 kits. Some of those are actually enormous and they don't fit as well. So I started toying around with how could I build these structures. And at the point I was living in central New England when I started, and there wasn't a hobby shop within 75 miles of me, and the hobby shops that were there were all distorted. They didn't have any really supplies at all. They had very minimal, styrene. They had no wood supplies whatsoever until I started, looking at old magazines, and that's when I first got into looking at how some of the original model railroaders built their models. And the more I got into it, I was really fascinated by really their approach. And Tom, if you want to put the presentation up, we could do that. It's 7:30 now. How long do you want me to go to?
7:45.
Okay, so I'm going to go through this quickly. So the name of the presentation, I've given this to a number of NMRA divisions, but I coined it The House That Cheerios Built. And a lot of the early modelers, they used whatever they had at hand. Often, if they were lucky, they had what they called Strathmore board, which is another name for the board that you use when you're framing pictures. But I started using any kind of card I could find within, quickly. And I started playing around with it and started learning tricks and stuff. And I started getting favorable results. Go ahead, Tom. And so, my background was I was a pretty sharp guy. I was a field sales engineer. By the time I started really getting into the serious aspect of doing most of my models, I was probably 10 years in. I had really strong skills from being an engineer, product engineer. I did woodworking, and that's sort of how I just sort of segued into this comfortably. Go to the next slide. One of the things I started doing was in my layout. So my layout is unusual in the sense that while it's ON30, it probably looks more like a mainline railroad. It looks more like S. It's somewhat large. It's 13 by 28 feet. It's got about 650 feet of track, 50 plus turnouts, and it's solely focused on coal. And I use elements of probably both the DNH and the EBT in it. There is some ON18 in, and of course, Mr. Sherrill here has influenced that, and he got me going into that. And I'll have some updates on that soon. Next slide. As I mentioned earlier, I think the hardest part is when you're in O scale is the complete lack of structures that are available now. They sometimes come up in the secondary market, but most of those structures there are mainline structures, and the footprints are just too big to put on what's a typical layout today. Particularly when I think my average bench depth is probably 28 inches. So you can't put a 12-inch deep structure on a 28-inch deep bench. You just can't. So you have to do things to give the impression that the building is bigger than it is. I got into, when I started modeling, I found very little help. I think, Al Judy inspired me a lot, but Al Judy's style changed. Al used to use a lot of prescribed wood, but it just didn't have the look that I was looking for. And probably my greatest influence on my work at first in the actual modeling was from the British, because the British have been using card for a long time, and they do layers. And I also met a couple people. There's a guy by the name of Scott Robertson, who used to be in the Owen 30 place. He left, went to G-Scale, but he too did card. And I visited his layout, and the results were spectacular. You just couldn't tell. And it gave me the look that I was looking for. Next. One of the things I got in there, I'm not going to go into this slide. This slide really is a presentation in itself, and really sort of my design methodology. And the short of it was Howard Zane really influenced me on how far you really need to take your structures depending where they are on the layout. And that's sort of what this goes into. I'm not going to go into this, but you don't really need as much detail as I think you do. And I found out by using the card and the paper and some even wood, I was able to get an adequate look. And when you have enough structures there, the eye wouldn't fixate on any particular aspect of the model, and then the way I weather my models. I don't go overboard. I don't do like, and this here was in particularly about like mortar lines and bricks and stuff. I just tone down the colors, and I've, you know, and that's sort of part of doing the card is you're not looking for perfection, but you're sort of looking for the Alan McClellan approach. Good is enough. Next. Couple of guys that really influenced me, and there's probably another guy now, of course, is Frank Ellison. And of course, you know, your show here is sponsored by somebody who's emulating him. But these structures here, what's really interesting is that these structures by Frank Ellison are still actually, they're around. I know the man who owns them. And then without doubt that John Allen was highly influenced by Frank Ellison. I can buy all the books I've read, and I've got a library of books pre-1950 and magazine articles. And you could see the evolution of it, how they did it. And, you know, Ellison's work is sort of simple. Of course, that's really aged now. You know, that those structures there in the top, bottom, they're 80 years old, and they fared fairly well, but they look good enough. You know, if you're 3-4 feet back, the detail's enough that your mind puts the rest of the detail together. But it was really interesting to see some of the things that Ellison had put into print between the late 30s and early 40s. And then John Allen came in and he did the basic thing, but he basically put it on steroids. He took a lot of Ellison's concepts and brought them forward. And likewise, people aren't aware of this, but John Allen used a lot of card and basic materials in his belts. He did not, you know, of course, have all the stuff that we have today. Next. This here is, I'm going to go through this. You know, you think of card and people think of standard, you know, small little houses, but these here, the two structures, the one on top is Stony Gap Hotel. The bottom one is a mine, and both of those are made out of card. As long as the key thing is you block them, you can really, any siding, you can replicate pretty quickly with card and with paint and with stain. And those are two examples that are all card buildings. That building on the top is probably 14 inches wide. The one on the bottom is 16 inches tall. Those are Owen 30 hopper cars underneath. Next. One of the things I really started liking about the card was the ability to do roofing, not just in this case here, I did slate roofing, and we could go into this later, but I like the ability of taking one piece of card, folding it over and getting, you know, a fairly complex hip roof like that in a fairly fast order and have it all come together, glue. It was simple, absolutely simple to glue together. And that structure is still there, but I use it for roofing. Next. I also use it for seam roofing. I do different types of seam roofing. The top two images, that's a kit bash of probably an MTH little platform. And then on the Stony Gap Hotel, you can see I just basically what I use called strip and stick method. I just alternate, you know, strips of wood and strips of card to get that raised seam look. The seams are bigger than I wanted, but you know, when you're 3 feet away, you can't pick up on it. It's good enough. Next. I do clapboard siding. I've really mastered this. And what I take is a basically card, and then I'm using, you know, those advertisements you get in the mail that are polished paper. People aren't aware of it, but they actually skim coat paper with a clay. That's how they get that paper shiny, is a clay. They do a clay skim coat on the paper. I sand it out, and then I just use strips of it. Now, what's interesting, I won't show it here, but the top right is what I call the company house. I built 4 of those. And you might have seen a little bit of it. I actually submitted that house. Go ahead, Tom. I don't remember if it's on the next slide or not. That company house there on the bottom left, I made 4 of those. It took me 10 days to make 4 of those houses, to include the lighting. And I had a really good time with this. And for the heck of it, the Pennsylvania State Museum had an art competition. I submitted it and I became one of the 96 finalists. So we're almost 3,000 entries. So, that brought something too, is that, when I look at my work, I sort of look at my work more as a folk art, just because of the approach and the style. And it was fun there because, like on the roof, on the bottom right picture, I actually weathered it using John Allen's original weathering suggestions. The roof was weathered with talcum powder, and the bottom of the building was weathered with a charcoal briquette that I basically sanded down and brushed on. And that was it. That is it. And that structure there you see on the bottom left, that's just nothing but card and paper. And I compress it. That's another conversation later. We're running out of time. But all of my floors, second floors, I do to 3/4 height, and the third floors I do to 5/8 height. So you see the windows there, but I do that because I don't want them too big or too tall on my layout, just so they don't look out of place. Next. There's just some more. Every structure you see in those images, again, is card. That's just sort of a random one. I've showed pictures of these on Facebook if you want to see them. Tom, what's the next one? And yeah, just go back to the other one. Let's end on the last slide, just because we're running out of time. So again, modeling consistency. And that was the one thing. I keep going back to Al Judy. Al Judy just said that so many times, be consistent in your style. And so that's sort of what I ended up with liking the card was I could get all the structures I wanted and have them all look like they belong together. If you look at all those structures there in that image, they all sort of, not just the paint, but they all sort of look the same modeling type. And that is a danger we face, particularly, in 30, because the remaining, and there aren't many of them now, the remaining model makers, the models look very differently from one another. They don't fit in. It's very difficult to take like a BTS kit and put it in next to an Atlas train building. It's very hard to describe that they look physically very different. So, and that was that. That gives us a few minutes for questions. I post a lot of pictures on Facebook. I do a lot of tutorials. I'm going back into the modeling now that my book's, well, it's not slowing down, but I got over the big initial promo of it. Did anybody have any thoughts or questions? Has anybody ever tried using card?
Kevin, this is Bob Geldmacher. I noticed on a lot of your buildings, the interior is brown. Is that a wood backing or is that just the backside of the cardboard?
That's the backside of the cardboard.
Interesting.
Sometimes I actually do some interiors, but that was another Al Judy thing. Al Judy actually did not like interiors. And he's the one, he said it was a slippery slope. That was his exact words. But there are places where I found that some interiors are absolutely crucial. Again, another presentation, why I do it, where I do it, and how I do it. More of mine is I fake people out with my lighting. I don't know if you saw the company houses. Some of the windows have lights, others don't. I don't try to do the Christmas Village. Every window, everyone, bright lights lit up. So I play with tones and stuff like that. But that's just simply the backside of a Cheerio box.
Okay.
And by the way, the Cheerio box is the best. General Mills has the very best cardstock.
And are your windows, the plastic windows, are they layers of cardboard?
It depends which building it is. Some are cardboard, and I'm learning how to do that. There's a modeler over in England by the name of Chandwell, and he's given some really good tutorials on how to do the mullions and the windows, and that's on one of my build projects.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. Anybody else?
I remember Al Judy telling me the same thing he told you, that he could tell by looking at somebody's layout, whose layout it was, and a particular style. He says, and it's important to have consistency, because if you just have random styles, it's like a painter, you know what a Cezanne looks like, you know what a Monet looks like, and but you definitely know it's not a Picasso. But they're all great artists, and that was his point.
Yeah, I can tell Al's old structures because I knew what he made them out of. He used a lot of the prescribed siding. And then his older years, he stopped building that way. He has some on his layout now. He's one near his bridge. That's typical Al Judy, many angles, prescribed. But Al also had his own weathering approach. Al had his own, he had a couple colors he heavily relied on all the time, and the way that he applied them, he didn't. So you can tell that. I tended to go with my weathering, though. I didn't like, my style wasn't Al's style of weathering. It's not I didn't like it, wasn't. But that's where I went with Howard Zane. Howard Zane really probably is given the best description of solar effect. And solar effect is when things get washed out as they get in the distance. And that's who taught me how to wash my buildings out to make them look farther away by applying things. But that's, again, another conversation.
Well, thank you, Kevin. And I do want to point out
welcome, sir.
that Kevin has a company called Narrow Gauge Modeling, and you can find his company at narrowgaugemodeling.com. One thing unique about Narrow Gauge Modeling is he has the largest collection of paint, including Floqual, probably in the world, but certainly in the United States, which probably is the world.
If I can add on that, I tapered back narrow gauge modeling because it was all O scale, and just the market really contracted a lot. But I have Floqual scale coat, and I have Model Masters enamel. I have about 8,000 bottles.
So if you're looking for that hard to find color, try
hard to find color except for black.
Yeah, narrowgaugemodeling.com. Well, thank you, Kevin. And
hey, thank you, and it's good to be back. And
get you on the program again. And you've got a lot to share. And we zipped through those slides. I can see where we could spend an entire 20, 30 minutes on that hotel. So
possibly we could do it on how to block it, because I think, on the close here, we've got one more minute. As we went fast, we actually went for 20 minutes. There's a misconception that cardboard warps and it fails. It doesn't. That's all made up. Honestly, I believe that came from the kit manufacturers. A lot of it who are trying to sell kits. I'm sorry. I've seen some of the old builds from Ellison, and they're as robust as they ever were. As
long as you seal them up, they're good to go. Cardboard is
seal them up. Absolutely.
Cardboard is technically a composite. Well, thank you again, and I don't mean to rush you, but we got a pretty packed evening this evening.
No, I know. Maybe too much.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you, my friend. Good night.
Well, thank you, Kevin. Well, next up, we have Bob Geldmacher and Steve Sherrill and portable power supplies. Before we run that, I'd like to run the sponsor of that segment, Carroll Creek, which is actually Bob's company.
Carroll Creek Design Group is an innovative new model railroad supplier with products for all scales. The Carroll Creek team uses advanced processes, including resin and filament 3D printing and laser engraving and cutting. These tools enable us to produce a range of products. We produce different rolling stock and motive power models in multiple scales. We are narrow-minded and focus on narrow gauge and unique backwards models. We have a great selection of ON30, ON18 and HON3 products. Our product range includes complete kits, ready-to-run models, and detail parts. In addition to our products, we are available for custom design, 3D printing, and laser cutting. See our products on our webpage at the QR code. We look forward to meeting you.
And now I'd like to introduce Bob Geldmacher and Steve Sherrill.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this is going to be a two-part talk. And thanks to Steve, and Steve and I talked quite a bit. He was fostering the idea of trying to come up with an easy way to power our layouts when we go to shows and we go to micro meets and things like that. And You got to click here. You know, when we go to these meets, there's a couple of questions I think we all have as soon as we get to the meet. First one is, where are we going to set up? And that all depends on the venue and the folks that are running it. The second is, do I have power? Because of most of our layouts are going to need power. And the third, which is probably the most important, where are the restrooms? Anybody that travels, you know, a couple of hours to get to one of these meets, I think the restroom might actually be the first question they ask, but I just thought I'd throw that in there. But as far as the power goes, that's where this presentation comes in. And this little device is a device that Steve found on Amazon. And it's a very small device. The board itself measures about 2 inches by 1.25 inches. And of course, it's a little bigger because it has the potentiometer here. But it's basically a motor speed controller. And it can work over a number of voltages, 6 volts, 12 volts, 24, 28. It can take up to 3 amps or deliver up to 3 amps, which is probably more than enough current than almost any of our layouts need, our smaller layouts, especially the ON30 and the ON18. And the other nice thing is not only can control the speed, but you can also reverse it. And that's exactly what this black glob is nothing more than a switch that connects into the board and helps you to reverse. The potentiometer just has a couple of functions. Number one, it can control the speed, but it also at the far left throw actually is an on-off switch. There's a little LED that you can see right here. And as long as the board isn't enclosed by anything, you can see that LED fairly quickly. And on the end, there is this green plug, and the green plug is basically where you provide power to this device. The two that are on the right side are the power in, and the two on the left are they call them the motor out, which is the output that would go to our tracks. Here's the ad that we found on Amazon. I know when I bought them, this is even cheaper than I got them for. I got them for like 2 for about $10. And they're readily available. There's a number of manufacturers or a number of brands that come out, and they're basically the same thing. And they're all, of course, coming out of China. The wiring is extremely simple on this. The only thing that you have to do is provide, number one, some kind of a power supply. And most of the time, I think a 9-volt battery would do the job, although you could put in 12 volts if you wanted to, and then run wires out to the tracks. That's all that you have to do with this. Even though this shows wiring here, this is the switch that comes pre-wired, and it just plugs into a little socket that's actually in the board itself. I mentioned, or I didn't mention, but this device runs on a pulse width modulated scheme. And by that, it's not the traditional potentiometer that's putting out various levels of voltage. It's actually taking that main voltage that's coming out and dividing it into pulses. And they call them duty cycles. And during any given time frame, the shorter that pulse is, the slower the engine's going to run. Because in this period right here, or this time frame, there's no voltage actually going to the engine. But because it's happening so quickly, and it could be up to like 15,000 cycles per minute, or per second, is that our railroad, our engines don't really notice the difference. But as you start to crank up the potentiometer, the pulse width, as you see here, gets wider and wider and wider, and it approaches the full power output. One of the things that Steve asked me when we started talking about this was, how do we package this? Because he found that having that board by itself and the switch on the board just was awkward. So we put our heads together and we said, could we build some kind of a box that these little power supplies would go in? And this is the resulting box. These boxes are about 4 3/8 by 2 5/8 by about 1 inch thick. These are 3D printed. And this is what the basic bottom line looks like on the box. Here's the reversing switch. Here's the potentiometer. And one thing that I added, which is this LED here, the LED is wired directly into the output and it has a little resistor on there, so that when the device is in the, let's say, the forward mode, the LED shows green, and when it's in the reverse mode, it shows red. The LED that's actually incorporate it into the board itself, it was difficult to actually bring that up onto a surface. So in all of these faces that we printed, there's a little hole right here, and that looks right down into the LED. So you just have to turn the box a little bit to see the red LED, which indicates that the power is on. On the back side, and because we've originally designed this for a 9-volt battery, there's a little cover that pops off, and the 9-volt battery can fit in there, and then the cover pops back on. And it's held together with 4 or 5 different screws, as you can see here, and it fits nicely in the palm of your hand. Here are the components that made up the box itself. The top panel and the bottom panel, and here's the door that goes over the 8-volt or 9-volt battery. If one wanted to run this with a 12-volt wall wart, they could do it. And what I would do is I'd actually take and put another hole in the bottom here and put another jack, and that's how we connect in. I'll show that in the next picture. And this jack is right here, as a matter of fact, 2.1 millimeter barrel jack. And another jack could go in there, and you could plug into the bottom with a 12-volt plug-in wall wart, and it would work just fine. This is a picture of the internal wiring. It looks a little more complicated than it actually was because we added that additional LED. But normally you would just have this green connector here with power coming into it from the battery and the power going out to that jack. I'm going to turn it over to Steve now, and Steve is going to talk about some actual applications of this and other similar devices that he's found online. And like I said, there's a lot of them out there. They're all fairly inexpensive, and it's just an easy way to carry power around when we go to the different shows. Steve, do you want me to switch your slides while you talk?
I think, Tom, you have my slides, don't you?
He has the same ones, I think.
Oh, he does? Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just tell me next when you're ready to go. Go ahead, Steve.
yeah. Well, I'm sure I'm glad I turned a lot of that over to you, Bob, because you're the technical wizard. So now we're going to go into alternate power supply for dummies, okay? As you can see right here, I was introduced to this by a modeler named Tom Boulder, who I met at the meet in Harrisburg. And I had taken 2 of my micros there, and come to find out that I didn't have but 1 extension cord. Therefore, I was only going to be able to do 1. But since Klimojevich was beside me with a more unique micro, he plugged his in, and I had my micro was not operating the whole weekend. So we're just sitting there. And I said, well, that's not going to happen again. And Tom Boulder had his display, a very unique display, which we have other pictures of. And so he came over and we were talking. He said, I went online and I got this picture right there of the power supply off of Amazon. And so I said, look, when you get home, here's my email address, send me the information. So with that, I went online and we came up with the supply that Bob just talked about. So next slide. Here's Tom Boulder's example of his micro. And if you see, it's in a very nice online dispatch. And it's written by Ian, what's his last name? Ian Holmes is the editor. And in this article, he tells how he built them and also how he mounted the controller. And he had a very unique way that he mounted this. So if you go to the next slide. Now here is the world famous test track that I talked about on New Tracks. Now, being that Bob had already said that it was a lot of work to build a case and to make it so it would work, in what I wanted, I said, well, there's got to be somebody out there who's making one already made. And so I went back on that Amazon site again and looked up PVM controllers. And lo and behold, there was this that you see in the picture. This is a completed, the same contents on the side, the same guts as we showed with the bear model. So go ahead and show the next one. Here's just another view of it, and I've got another loco on there. I've been running back and forth. Now, the case that this comes in, it's about the size of the blue boxes for wall electric outlets. So imagine that is the same size. It's 3.8 by 3.5 by 2.3. So what it does, what you can do with it, is you just put a screwdriver in the sides and slide this whole thing out. And as you can see, you had two ways to do this. You could either put the 9-volt battery inside, or you could mount it outside. And I've got a little pigtail there with the connection to the 9 volts. So, and what I have done now is I just keep it on the outside. I did not go and do any wiring on the inside. When you wire these, it's very easy because they put plus and minus and tell you where the positive and where the negative is to the motor and also to the power. So it's hard to make a mistake on that. Okay, next one. Here's another view with the 9-volt battery sitting out. You can see there's plenty of room in there, and it literally just slides up in there and clicks. Next slide. So as I've said before, everything is plain and simple. You can put the power with the plus and the minus so you don't get any shorts, and the motor plus and minus. Okay, next slide. Here's the face again. Now, again, this is the on-off. So when you turn the potentiometer on, you'll get a click, and the LED will come on in red. It does not increase in lighting. It just stays on and it's red. All right, now what I did, I put a potentiometer on this particular 9-volt output on this controller, and it did not lose any power except when it got way down in the 20 range. It was a full 9 volts all the time. Now, the other one that we did that was like Bob put in the box was I had 6 volts. Excuse me, I had 4 volts on that with a AAA battery box attached to that. And that ran the ON18 models at a wonderful slow speed. And it also, when I put the voltmeter on it, held as 4.5 volts. So next here again, this is the side view. And so it's, again, clear as day, plus and minus on the motor. This picture is just to kind of give you the size. Okay, next picture. Now, here's what I did. When you go to this site, you're going to get a lot of things that are offered to you. You just have to keep leafing through until you get to what you want to pay. So they have some for $15 each, $18. What the difference is, I don't know. I'm not a technical person. But when it got down to here's 2 for $20, so that's $10 a piece. Bob told me that he could not make one after purchasing the unit for that kind of money. So, you know, this is the way to go. I believe if you want to have a finished look, and it's a nice, clean looking fascia. And I mounted it on my test track here with just one screw. All right. And I pre-drilled the screw, so it's went in there nice. And I didn't take any chance on splitting the plastic enclosure. And again, the forward reverse is on there, and it's really easy to operate. So now I got mine for $15, two for $15. So we're talking about $7.50. Again, you know, you keep going through, and they have all kinds of electronics on that PVM control site that are not necessarily the PWM controllers. They have other things going on there. Look and you know, maybe there's something else you see that you like. Next slide. Here again is the back of it. Again, it'd be very difficult to have a cross wire for the plus and the minus are short. You have to, you know. Okay, next slide. It's a real clean looking controller. Next one, please. So here we, these prices go all over, okay? Now I paid $6.99 for the one I had, and supposedly it was 20% off or something. Here they have two for $8.99. So that's, you know, $4.50 a piece. You can't get any cheaper for a controller than that. So here I am mounting it on my test track with the battery box hooked into the, that's just for the display. Okay. And that's basically the setup that you have. And it was real simple with the three AAA batteries in the box to set that right on top and put a rubber band around it. And you had something that's about 3/4 the size of a pack of cigarettes, if you can remember what that size was, since you don't have, not many of us smoke anymore. Okay, next one. And here, I think Bob has shown a picture of this same thing again. Now here's Tom Boulder had this. This is one of the ways that he installed this. Was real simple. He just put a piece of wood in, notched it on the side, and mounted the other things on the outside of the wood and hooked it in. So it was hidden, it was easily accessible, and he put the 9-volt battery behind the controller so he could just take it out when it ran out and put a new one in. Really simple construction, out of the way, easily accessible, and hidden from view. And thank you very much.
One thing I'll add in there is, you know, I looked at the difference in prices and was just trying to figure out why. And the unit that I showed and the last couple that Steve showed, the reason why the prices are so inexpensive is I really think they're using very, very, very inexpensive, quote, cheap components to make that. I had to try to work with the LED on one of them, and the trace, which is the copper wire that's actually on the boards, the trace is so thin that it comes off very easily. So I would suggest that you spend a little more money and try to get a little bit better quality unit. I don't think they're going to break very easily, but you know, you do get what you pay for.
You think the enclosure was a better? Obviously, you have more protection with the enclosure.
I think it depends, Steve. If you know, if you want something that's handheld, and most of the time you wouldn't be walking around with it anyway, I think something that you can mount right there on the layout like you've done is probably what most people will wind up doing.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. And I like the look of the one that you showed better than the one that I built. I think it's a more professional looking box.
Well, in that dispatch magazine that you see, a lot of the guys are doing this. They're having the on a cord, I guess, so they can operate the trains in the front, stand there, or have other people do it. But you know, very easy to operate, and they have very low control. I mean, you can run these locomotives real slow. It's amazing how $4 or $5, $10, you get a controller like this that it may be as good as some of the transformers we have.
Yeah, I heard that you could probably power this with a 12-volt car battery. It would last you 250 years.
Yeah. Pull your car up inside and put jumpers on it.
You know, what's really amazing is the Pico Flex Track on your test module is more expensive than that entire controller.
Including the battery.
I mean, think about that. That's just bizarre. And the price of these electronics is just mind-boggling inexpensive, you know.
And if you go to PWN controller, it will get you access to all that we've shown tonight.
Yeah.
And other things that if you want to look. And that's Google. And I got mine within 2 or 3 days of ordering.
Bob, one technical question.
Yeah.
So you guys are using them for the relatively low amperage requirements of ON18. But these things, I mean, you could hook a car battery up there. And what if you had a locomotive that drew an amp or a half amp? Would it catch your house on fire or would it work?
Aren't these good for 3 amps?
They say they're good for 3 amps. I've read a couple of the reviews. One in particular said it was good for 4 amps, but somebody said that they were measuring it and had it up to 1 ampere, and it was getting warmer than they liked. Again, it's all a matter of the amount of money you're going to put into it. I think when Steve pulled his box apart, there was a couple of these heat heat shields.
Heat sinks.
Heat sinks. Thank you. And on the one that I have, it only has a small heat sink and it's loosely attached. Again, the more money that you buy, the better quality it's going to be, or more money you spend, the better quality it's going to be. And things like the ability to provide more current is built into that type of thing, when you spend more money. But yeah, I mean, a 12-volt battery is not going to, when you hook it up to an engine, it's going to go forever. I mean, its current carrying capacity is very, very large, and you're not going to run it out of gas anytime soon.
Well, that was a fascinating presentation, and I thank you both. And are there any final questions for these two while we have them on? Well, thank you both, and we'll see you next time. Next up, we've got our very own Phil Edholm, 3D filament printing tips. But before Phil comes on, we're going to do a little video on New Tracks Live. Assuming Elvis hasn't left the building.
I guess we're just jump to my thing because I don't know what the New Tracks Live is. So donation. You want the donation video? Sorry,
sorry.
Confused me on the video there. Here we go.
Do you enjoy New Tracks modeling? You can help support New Tracks in many ways, but donating to support the show and other activities is really appreciated. This helps pay for the expenses of producing the show, including Zoom, website, and emailing costs. You can support New Tracks financially in 3 ways. First, you can make direct contributions through Patreon. With Patreon, you can make a single or monthly contribution to New Tracks. You can also contribute through YouTube by using super stickers and super chats to donate. Finally, when you watch a YouTube replay, letting the ads run will increase the payout to New Tracks. Thank you for supporting New Tracks modeling.
Well, again, thank you. Our expenses are nominal, but there are some expenses. So if spirit moves you, make a donation. Well, Phil, our producer, has a program this evening, tips for 3D filament printing.
Tom, I go through this real quickly. So this was one of the we talked about the idea of kind of having the concept of quick tips, something that and so I thought I'd do something on filament printing, some filament printing quick tips. I've used filament printing bought one. I actually my second one. I bought one probably in 2019, and actually bought a second one a couple of years ago. What I find is the filament printer is not great for modeling detail. It's great for modeling other things like the 3D printing of the framing of buildings, but I also find it's great for things like control panels. So I'll show you this. This is the control panel I'm putting together for my layout in my room, which takes modules that are portable and combines them with some fixed modules. On the left, you can see kind of the cabinet. The reason it's so large is the bottom is for a couple of bins or 4 bins to go in. And the top, the white part you can see there, that's where the wiring is. And I'll probably put some pictures of that in the future. But the front panel here is all 3D printed. So what you have on the left is the control panel for that area of the layout. In the center is the lighting panel for the layout. And on the right is the DCC power system. And there's an interior that goes in there that is not done yet. And you can kind of see at the bottom, this is basically an operational panel for part of the layout. And it's 3D printed, LEDs and push buttons through it. And it's kind of multicolor. So I wanted to talk about a few things that I've learned kind of doing these things and putting them together. So I got 5 real quick things to talk about. You can go back and look at this, and the slides can be available if you want them. The first is, and this is my environment. I use FreeCAD primarily for design. I do Cura as my slicer and an Ender 3 SE. So this is a less than $200 now, I think, 3D printer. So the first one is the concept of print layer management. So the printers, when they print, the basic slicer slices at a 45-degree angle. So if you leave that in the normal, just basically the way it's configured, the top of your prints is going to be at a 45-degree angle. And if you notice here on this blow up of that lighting panel, you notice that all 3 layers here are actually horizontal on the final print layer, which makes the outcome look a lot more uniform. So to give you an idea of basically the way you do that, this is that same control, one of those control panels, the one that's for the DCC. And you notice if you just slice it, the first time you slice it, you're going to get these things at a 45-degree angle. But what you can do is if you go into the top and bottom layer in the slicer, there's top and bottom line directions, and that allows you to basically set up how this works. So what I did was, the problem is if you're dealing with 200 to 300 layers and you want to figure out where you want lines to do that, to actually type that out would probably kill you. So clearly the obvious way to do it is to do it with a spreadsheet. So what I did was I put a spreadsheet together that you go in and you actually enter the total number of layers in the tool. You enter in a layer direction that you want. So it can either be one of the 4 directions, 0, 90, 45 one way, 45 the other way, or you can have basically the concept that it increments. So that says if it's 45, it'll do 135. If it's 90, it'll do 180. So it basically does a 90-degree increment, which is what they do in their basic formatting. So what you can do is you can now go in and pick any layer and change it and actually make that layer angle what you want. And what it'll show you is what's the angle of the layer, and it'll show you how it's going to print on your printer. So you can take this tool and real quickly plug in the data and information you get, and then it gives you an output, which is all of those things to go in and print. So even if you're doing a 200 layer print, once you find the layer, and the way you do that is you go into that angle print and you just move this down until you find the layer. And you notice right here, I've got a layer that's flat, and then there's a layer that's got some print on it. So I find that layer that's flat, and that's the point that I go in and I edit to actually change that number in that specific layer, and I change it to the direction I want it, and then I change the next layer back to the 45 or 135. So by doing this, what you can do is now generate an output that you copy and you paste it into that location there. And now when you do your slicing, you notice that what I've done is I've set this up so these layers now print in a horizontal print. So if you want that, the tool, you can download, it's an Excel spreadsheet. So you just have to download the spreadsheet. Don't edit the cells and it'll work fine. Just start by putting the number of layers in at the top and you can automatically configure it. So you can just download it using this. It's up on the internet. The second thing is multicolor printing. So one of the things I really wanted to do was use the printer to print things in FreeCAD. I'm not going to go through this. You can do lettering. So this thing on the left is lettering. This is for staging tracks. And there's actually an LED in here. It's designed for a camera. So through the camera, you can see which staging track is which. You notice these panels over here were printed. So the way those are done is really simply is you find the layer where you want to change the color. So for example, when I do that lettering, like on this panel, what I do is I want to change it on the second layer of the lettering. I want to leave the first layer of the lettering that background color and then change it. So what you do is you find that layer. So layer 90 is the lower flat area. Layer 91 is the first layer of lettering. So what I do is I want to pause it after layer 91. And the way you do that is you go into Cura and you click on extensions, post-processing, and that'll bring up this window and you add a script. And what you do is you add the script. When you click that down, it'll say one of the scripts it'll offer you is pause at height. And what you do is you go in there and you edit this pause at height here to the number you want. And so what that'll do is at 91, the printer will pause. And what it does, it actually moves the print head back to a back position. I put a camera on my printer so I can figure out when it's going to do this. So I get there right away. What you do is you real quickly, either if you can get there when it stops, you can do it immediately. Or what I do is I restart it. You restart it by hitting tune to restart it. When you do that, what you do is you basically wait until it hits about 190 degrees, pull out the first color, put in the second color, and now it'll print that second color on top. So what you get is you get this, nice lettering that looks like this. Sorry about that. The third one I want to talk about is ironing for surfaces. So one of the things about 3D printers, filament 3D printers, they're like squeezing a tube of toothpaste. It's hot. It kind of levels out, but it doesn't level out perfectly. So when I started doing things like these cabs, this is actually one you can get from the O-Scale company online. Basically wanted to make these doors look a little bit better. So what you do is you actually can go in and iron the print head over the top of the part to remove print lines. So if you've got lines, it actually lets you eliminate them. So what you do is, in this case, I aligned the layers just like we talked about before. And then what I did was I put in ironing. And if you search for ironing, it'll bring this up and it'll tell you you can enable ironing. You can pick a pattern. There are some parameters. And what it does is it actually gives you, if you look at these two, you can see how much better the one on the right is that's been ironed and smooths out those lines in the print. So that's a third thing. Fourth thing is the elephant tool. So one of the problems with 3D printing is that first layer tends to squish out, especially because you push that first layer down towards the base to make sure you get good adhesion. That's called an elephant's foot. So it turns out if you type ELE in the search engine, you'll actually get this horizontal expansion that you can actually define the horizontal expansion. And so with the horizontal expansion, you can actually adjust it so that you step the first layer back. So instead of the first layer being like this and getting squished out when it gets squeezed out, by stepping it back a little bit when it gets squeezed out, it's going to be the same as the subsequent layers. And the final thing, little hint, is one on what it's called Z-seam alignment. So this is actually a spreader I built I'm building some beat cars, and I wanted a spreader inside to essentially have the beats flow out, but also because I can put weights inside of it to weight the cars to a reasonable level. When I went to print these, what I realized was that it was starting the print out on this line, because it says it's basically not really specified. So what found you can do is you can go into where it's called ZC of alignment. You'll have to find this, and you can specify that you want to start it on the sharpest corner. So it'll pick on that layer. So if you look here, you see that it actually started right here on each layer, which means that on the actual print, you don't have that line anymore of where the print started. So that's all, folks. Didn't take too long. And I will stop sharing and see if there are any questions.
I think that ironing feature is pretty clever, because one of the, I don't want to call it problems, but one of the issues with filament printing is seeing those lines. And well, that ironing feature seems to take it away completely, eh?
Yep.
That's
Well, the thing about this 3D printing thing, and I really encourage you got to think outside the box. So if you don't mind, Tom, I'm going to share my slides back one more moment just to point something out, because I doubt that anybody actually recognized this when I shared it before. Let me share this again. So if you look at this cabinet, notice the hinges there. They're 3D printed. These handles on the side that help me move it in and out, these CCC, California Central Coast, the name of the railroad, these little handles here, they're all 3D printed. These 4 hinges, it would have cost me more in gas to drive to the store and buy them than it did the time to 3D print. It would have taken more time and cost me significantly more in gas than to 3D print them. They're basically just the same thing you would buy as a door hinge as a 3D print, with a piece of coat hanger wire through them as the hinge pin. And they're very sturdy for supporting a 1/2-inch plywood door.
on the other 2 points, the seam alignment, starting in the corner instead of the middle of the potential model, that's a great tip too. And I guess the default can get you in trouble there. It puts in a seam where you don't want it, right?
Exactly. So it's just some points for those of you who decide you want to buy a filament printer. Like I said, for $200, it's amazing what you get. Anyway, back to you, Tom.
Well, thank you, Phil. There were some really interesting points there, even for us that aren't currently 3D printing, but probably will at some point. Well, next up, we have our Earl Hackett. He's one of the producers of the show as well. And he's going to do a presentation on modeling Thurman, West Virginia. And before we have him on, we're going to do a little promo on the New Tracks digital magazine, New Tracks Modeler.
Get more New Tracks modeling by reading the New Tracks Modeler magazine. Each edition of New Tracks Modeler includes exciting articles about modeling shown on the show, other modeling topics, and prototypical railroading information. Other articles focus on outstanding model railroaders and new products from a range of suppliers. Don't miss the photos of the popular New Tracks My Build. You can download New Tracks Modeler for free from the New Tracks Modeling website. Subscribe so you don't miss an issue.
And before Earl gets on, the August edition of New Tracks Modeler digital magazine, some of it has been distributed already through Dan Dowdy's O-Scale resource database. Those of you who have subscribed on the New Tracks website will be distributing the magazine, I believe, tomorrow morning, August 1st. This is our best issue yet. It's the 3rd issue. And every month it gets more and more refined. And I think it holds its own with the 2 major magazines, RMC and Model Railroader. Some say even better. I want to thank some of those in the audience, participants tonight, for having articles in the present magazine. And Remember, if you do a PowerPoint or a presentation on New Tracks Live here, and you incorporate text on your slides, I have the ability to bring your presentation into ChatGPT. It turns it into an article. Of course, I have to clean it up, and then I give it to you for proof and any additions. But it's a great way to become a published author and contribute to mentoring, our cause. So I'd like to introduce Earl Hackett. He's presented before. He's a terrific modeler, and welcome to the show, Earl. You're normally in the background. It's great to have you up front and presenting. So
there we go. Now I can speak.
Phil, yeah.
Phil, go ahead, fire up the first one. Okay, this is years ago, about 30 years ago. Well, maybe 2000, about 2000. So I don't remember the exact date, but I was on business trips over to the UK to the University of Manchester to do some research for DuPont. And first these trips would take 2 weeks. I'd be over there for 2 weeks at a time, maybe 3 times a year. And I got tired of sitting in my hotel room looking at the TV that had really crappy television shows. And my wife suggested I find some model railroaders. So I did. I contacted the Scale 4 Society over there and wound up being introduced to a gentleman by the name of John Yates. And we became very good friends. And I've been back and forth there they've visited us. We visited there. But the thing that really impressed me was I went to the club, the Manchester Model Railroad Club, and they had a layout there. It was N scale, but it was to fine scale standards. And I have never seen anything like that. Go ahead, go to the Cheadle slide. It's really changed the way I view the hobby. What they did was to take a section this is in the Lakes District of England. They took a little section of track. It went from if you look at the little red flag at the lower right corner, that is a tunnel. All right, tunnel. It went across the viaduct, and then proceeded along the ridge line there. And they moved a few of the towns around a little bit to make it work, but they took an actual site and modeled it to the best of their ability, and that changed the way I looked at model railroads. Go ahead, go to the next one there, Phil. I mentioned there was a viaduct there. On the right-hand side, on the right hand of the viaduct, goes through those trees and it goes into the tunnel. And just to show you, it's now a hiking trail, and it's for a lot of people there. So I guess it's a pretty popular hiking trail. I'll go ahead to the next one.
I'm not sure what that is.
This is.
Yes, I've fond memories of Cheadle. It's a lovely little village in the heart of the Derbyshire Peak District. I got to know it well when the railway modernisation plan, known to most people as the Beeching Cuts, were underway in the 1960s. That was just before I retired. Although the line was on the list for closure, at the time Cheadle had become quite a busy place. The main line from Manchester to Derby was being upgraded, and a lot of traffic was sent over this secondary route, even though there was only a single track between the stations. The result was that the line had to be kept open 24 hours a day, and I was drafted in as a relief signalman to help out Albert Stevens, the regular bobby. In those days, of course, we had proper summers. The sun rose early in the morning and shone continuously almost till bedtime. My favourite shift, without a doubt, was the early morning one that started at 6. First train I had to deal with was the 6:35 all stations to Derby, and it acted like an alarm clock for many of the villagers. Usually there aren't many passengers for this first train, but this morning it looks as if Colonel Thompson is making a very early start again for a day in town. For Matt Kirtley at the village stores, the first train heralds the start of his day, and his son Jimmy is often sent up to the station for the morning papers. These will have been printed in Manchester, and are distributed overnight throughout the country by the railways. Matt's little shop is the only one in the village, and although it's small, he manages to stock most of the things that we need from day to day. Once the DMU is gone, we normally have an hour or so before the next scheduled passenger service, but of course, with the diversions, we have to handle quite a few extras like this load of iron ore. It's come from the mines in the East Midlands, and it's bound for the steelworks in Manchester. Would have been loaded last thing last night, and we try to give it a clear road if at all possible, because restarting a heavy load like this is no joke, even with a banking engine to help. A long delay here would mean they'd be late clearing the section, and that could cause all the subsequent work.
What happened, Phil?
Workings, including the passengers, to run late for most of the morning. Today they're going well though, and once through the station it's mostly downhill, so the banker can drop off and return to Roseley to wait for the next heavy freight needing its assistance.
Now remember, this is N scale. Check out the signals.
Half past 7, and the early morning commuter trains from Derby and Manchester both arrive about now, so the station becomes a fair hive of activity until we get them on their way again. We all try to make sure they're not delayed, because apart from our pride in the job, we haven't that much time before the next train is due, and that will be the Blue Pullman.
Okay. That's a clip that I downloaded. You can find it. It's worth watching the whole thing. The goes on. It's about a 15-minute film. It was filmed in 16 millimeter, and then converted to digital. It's unfortunate we didn't have better video equipment back in those days, but that's what we have. Anyway, it changed the way I look at model railroading. I've always built, freelance layouts, and Phil, can you skip back up to one slide? Yeah, there we are. On this layout, remember this is N scale, fine scale standards. They had one of these things. This is an outside double slip switch, where we have all the ones that I've seen in North America are what they call inside double slip switches. The track work is, and they actually use these bullnosed rails rather than the, if you look at them, the bottom, they're bullnosed rails. They sit in these saddles, and they modeled it with the saddles. It was an incredible thing. You had to see it in person to believe what you were looking at. Okay, Phil, press on. Go to that one there. Yeah, next slide. Yeah. Okay. So I came home and I said, I really like this concept. This is really slick. And I remembered from when I was a little kid, the Wilmington waterfront. And here, it was an incredible jumble of tracks. You had the Pennsylvania Station on the right-hand side. And that's still in use in Amtrak today. It goes up and it was built on a viaduct. Now, to the inside of that curve were 4 switch leads, 2 for the Pennsylvania, which were the original main line, and which were abandoned once the railroad was the viaduct was finished. And you also had service from the B&O and the Reading, all coming in there to service all these warehouses. Every building in that place had direct rail service. The trackage was incredibly complicated. That on to the left side, you see that roundhouse. That is not a roundhouse as we think of them. That is a passenger car manufacturing facility. And that had direct rail access, obviously. Okay, so this is what I wanted to model. And I decided, okay, I'm going to start with the Pennsylvania Station. Go to the next slide, Phil. And this is as far as I got. This is the shell. I still had to do the glass canopy out front. I was working on that. I had the canopies on the station platforms. I was about maybe a third of the way through constructing this thing. And it took a year, and I don't know how many pounds of silicone rubber, because I was making castings to produce all this stuff. And I finally realized that this isn't going to work. I'm not going to be able to do it. So I said, okay, I quit. I'm going to go back to modeling my favorite layouts, my favorite railroads, which were the the Appalachian coal haulers, specifically the C&O. I always loved the C&O. The cat was really nice. I liked it. It was a cute kitten. So anyway, that's the one I decided I always followed as sort of a prototype. Go to the next slide, Phil. This shows police the waterfront today. All the buildings have been knocked down. Everything is gone except for the station, of course, which is in the cyan colored area. And if you look just to the left of that area, the little round thing, that is the original B&O passenger station, built in 1880 or so. It's been refurbished, and it's now I believe it's a real estate office. And there's one or two other warehouses that still exist. They've been converted to a restaurant, which is not a big restaurant, and office buildings. But everything else is in bulldoze. It's gone, and there's no documentation. I couldn't go back and find anything about it. It's all lost to history. Next slide, Phil. So I went back to modeling the C&O, and along comes 3D printing. And I was modeling a section of the C&O from Ronsford, West Virginia to A cabin, which was the summit of the westbound grade or eastbound grade. And the first building I tried in 3D printing was the station at Ronsford. And this was done by Shapeways. I sent in the drawings, of course, and they printed it for me. And I was never impressed with the quality of the work that came out of those guys. It was pretty rough. And this was the best they had. But anyway, I managed to get a reasonably good model out of it. But I was really not impressed. And the problem was that here I am modeling, I'm trying to model 40 or 50 miles, 20 or 30 miles of track and shoving into my basement. And it was just, I still wanted to do what I saw in England, where they took a section of track and modeled it exactly as it existed. So I'm not happy. Go to the next slide, Phil. Okay. I was so impressed with 3D printing, I bought a little 3D printer, a little Elegoo Mars, the first version. And with that, I started building signals. I was still building the grade, the Ronsford to A cabin section, but it required signals, and I started to build signals. And here we have, you can see here we have a signal mass in a mold. And the mold, I actually 3D printed the molds, and if you the lower for the signal mass with the two triple heads, you pour the resin into the lower cavity, it would flow along that channel, work its way up, and slowly work its way up, and you would take all the wires and they would be concealed inside the mast. So you don't have any wires sticking out that look ugly to me. Go to the next slide, Phil. These are the final products. And I use whatever technique is best for the particular job. The cantilevers themselves are 3D printed. The signal masts are cast in epoxy from 3D printed molds. And the wires snake their way down. Well, you can't see them, so they go there snaking their way down underneath that walkway. The handlebar, the ladders, maintenance platforms, all that is etched brass from PPD products, PPD etching in Argyll, Scotland. If you want any etched brass, they're the best there is. There isn't anybody else that can do what they do, and they're really good to work with. Well, the next slide. So here's one of them installed on my layout. As I said, this was this section here was the first last slide. Those are the distance signals for this interlocking. This was fully interlocked. We had a double track signaled in both directions. There was a coal mine to the left and a branch line to the right from this view. And we actually fully interlocked. Using Armstrong levers, they would lock if you weren't supposed to move them. So it was it was an interesting exercise in model building. But I still wanted to go back and build an exact replica of a real section of railroad, because it looks different. It has a different feel. And I couldn't, I'm 80 years old. I don't have years to go out and research new places like Quinnamont and St. Albans and stuff that are also quite interesting. I needed something that was ready to go. All the research is done. All I have to do is build it. And that is Thurman, West Virginia. It's also a really classical piece of railroad. The top image here is the actual C&O, let's call them, valuation plan. Everything that they had there, they were getting it back from the government. They had to document everything that they had so they get paid for. Then I took this, shrunk it to HO scale, and it fits very nicely along one wall of my basement. And the lower section shows the actual track plan. The blue switches are number 10s or 12s. The red ones are number 7s or 6s. And some of them, I don't know what they are, like the one here going to the bridge on the very lower left where it's curving out and ends. That is the lead to the bridge across the New River. And I don't know what that is. It's all hand built for the purpose built. Okay, go ahead and go to the next one. And this is where I am right now. This is, I finished laying all the track. All the track is hand laid because these switches, that's the only way you can build them. Right now, the big job is to put in the scenery, which is basically a hillside and some buildings. And the scenery is pretty simple. It's a hillside with trees. That's about it. Go to the next slide, Phil. Another view shows this shows the river. The river is fairly wide. The bridge is both a girder construction. It's a Warren truss with several sections of girder construction on it. Total length is about 6 feet, and it goes over to what they call South Side Yard, which is where they stored all the empty hopper cars. So when you get a call for a job to a mill, a mine, you had to go across the river, pick up your hopper cars, drag them back over, build your train, and off you went. So it's a lot of operation. It's not like the usual operation you see on a model railroad where we're going to switch cars. So we're going to put this one to that spot, that spot. That drives me crazy. I don't enjoy that at all. I want to run stuff, and this allows me to do operation and actually run trains, very much like they showed in that clip. I think it's another one. Yeah, okay. These are some of the buildings that I've built. This was I've been building the buildings. I can't install them until I get some of the scenery in the background out of the way. But here you see the bunkhouse. This was for train crews that were they were going to be overnight. That's the model that I built. These are 3D printed models. In this case, everything there is 3D printed. Go to the next one, Steve, Phil. This is the only photo I have of the freight house from across the river. So this is the side you'd actually see on the layout. So this is the only one photograph I have to show what it looked like. And this is the model that came from it. The upper sections, the building itself is 3D printed. The trestle work underneath is all strip wood that I made. It's all poplar. I make my own strip wood, so that's all just poplar and typical construction. I added a little detail to the office on the building. The desk there is a model of the desk that I'm sitting at right now, and the chair is a model of the chair I'm sitting in. So I sort of enjoy that. Okay, next one, Steve. Okay, now this one here is the Kincaid building. It was a restaurant, lawyer's office, and dry goods store. And it's stone construction. This is a color photograph of it as it is today. That's the model. It was an interesting challenge to build the thing because every one of those stone blocks is unique. And well, I shouldn't say that. There's 100 unique stone blocks, and they're thrown in randomly so you don't see any patterns of surface. But anyway, that was an interesting challenge. So I'm not going to go into that. So anyway, there you go. That's what I'm doing right now. Thank you. Any questions?
Earl, I have a question.
Shoot.
Tell us how you did those blocks on that those stone blocks.
Oh,
I mean, are they individually
I'll give you a very, very, very short description, and you may not understand some of the language, some of the words, the technique. I went to a site that had they make surfaces for whatever you want to use them for, and they have sample surfaces which are relatively small. They were maybe you get about 100 blocks out of one of these samples, and what they were was a height gauge, a height that depending on it was black and white, depending on the color, the intensity, they'd be either at a very low level or a very high level. The high level was very lightweight, and the low level would be dark. So you could see a basically a topographical view. In the program I use, I can throw that in there, and I can with some difficulty, create a mesh that follows that contour. So I cut out 100 blocks, individual blocks, made meshes for all 100 of them, shrunk it. And these things were big. These are they were like 5-6 foot blocks. Shrunk them down to HO scale to make them size that I needed, and then put them together one by one. I'm insane. I'm putting these things together, building this little wall, and then unifying it and printing it. But it was what I wanted. I wanted to have the block go around the corner and be continuous.
Yeah, right.
That's why I did it, because otherwise it just doesn't look right.
How those real blocks are made is it's called a rock face, and it's a very wide chisel, 4 to 6 inches wide, and they hammer the front of that around the perimeter.
Right.
That's called a rock face. Anyway.
Yeah, 4 sides are precision.
Yeah.
The front is whatever comes out. But on the corners, I wanted that edge, the rounded edge, wrap around it, and because it's very prominent. It's one of the things you really see when you look at it.
No, I've been to Thurman. I know what you're talking about.
Earl, I have one question.
Sure.
Yep.
You said you cut your own material in the wood. What are you using to cut it with?
Well, unfortunately, I have a thickness sander. Well, I have a bandsaw first, and I use I take 3/4 inch poplar. I get it at the hardware store, lumber store.
Okay.
Strip that down, cut that down to a fairly thin level. Then I have a thickness sander from Model Machines. And unfortunately, the gentleman who produced these machines died a few years ago, and they're no longer available. But I run it through the thickness that to get an even smooth out, to get the precise thickness I want.
Yep.
Getting both sides sanded. And then I built a gang saw that I put on my radial arm saw. I have 5 blades that I put on there. They're metal splitting blades, and I run it through there so I get 5 strips out of each piece.
Wow,
and then that goes back to the bandsaw or another saw, and I just slice off lengths that I want.
Very good.
and when I'm building all my ties, I make all my own ties the same way. And so I take a shop vac, I clean it out really nice, shake it all out. I put that near where the pieces are going to come flying off the bandsaw. I just zip. I stack up a 5x5 array of these things and every pass is 25 of these things go sucked into the shop vac.
Half goes out and half stays in.
And so, yeah, well, in a weekend, I'll do this in a mass production. I'll make 20 or 30,000 of these things, of ties in a weekend.
Okay.
Thanks, Earl.
I'm nuts. I know.
No, you're
Thank
not.
you, thank you, Earl. Very interesting presentation. We have one more presentation, so we're going to run a little late this evening, if that's okay with everybody. We've got a really unique presentation from David. He's going to be intimidated how to say his name correctly. Malott. He's kit bashing an ON30 Prairie locomotive. I've seen the presentation. It's a great scratch build. David? Still here?
He's still here. He's asleep.
Sleep.
Wake up, David. David.
Okay, that's that.
All right. Well, then we'll do his next show. Let's close on time. Let's have our traditional close with Father Ron, and then we'll have our caboose. Father Ron.
Maker of the universe, our scale models imitate your creative spirit, and we learn the genius of your handiwork. Teach us to appreciate all you have made. Amen.
Thank you, Father Ron. And speaking of world-class modelers, it'd be great to see Father Ron again on a model. I really enjoyed Grandma's House was one that he did, and anything like that would be great. Phil, if we have the caboose. Hey, Phil, you can narrate this a little for us.
Yeah, this modeler was actually the chief signal. I want to know it was maintainer or engineer for the CNO, and he's built this layout. It's all signaled totally accurately. One of the things is look at the telephone lines on this layout. They're just amazing. But it's fully signaled, and they fully operate it exactly as the prototype. And what you can see a little bit later in this is the dispatch panel, etc. But it was just an amazing layout.
Can't get over the size of these layouts. This is absolutely reminds me of Howard Zane almost.
Yeah, but these are all done. This one's done very much as an operational layout.
Scenery is gorgeous. It's first class 5-star layout for sure.
Yeah, it's quite amazing.
It's just. Did you ask him how long he's been building this particular layout?
No, didn't talk to him about that. It was pretty much mobbed, quite frankly. You know, they went to all self-guided tours, and so they had a tour with about 10 or 11 layouts, 12 layouts open, and 50% of the people, 60% of the people decided to start at one end. So you end up you can see how many people are in the place here. And
you have any idea how many running feet or how large the room is?
Yeah, it was all in the beginning there. That intro has all the data on it. So if you go back and look at the video, you can see that.
Okay.
Yeah, I put the data from the layout guide in the beginning of all of these. But he's currently the chief engineer for a short line railroad in the area. But these are those telephone wires I was talking about. Just look at those. Imagine doing 50 feet of those. He said he basically puts on some rock music and just sits there and does it. So,
Very attractive layout.
this is a railroad I really wish I would have enjoyed running on, operating on.
I like that. That's well done.
Yeah, there are just a lot of amazing scenes on the layout.
Nice shot there too.
Yeah.
That's really impressive when you go to a large.
Now
layout.
you think this was his dispatch station, and you would be totally wrong. So this is in a room upstairs in a bedroom, and this is the dispatch panel. It's actually salvaged equipment, rebuilt and purposed a lot of it, and just pretty amazing that you're operating the layout. And I took a couple of pictures of the back end of it, but I came away just incredibly impressed.
So this runs from the wires run from upstairs.
So this is the best part. He's in the back of the garage in a separate building. He has this interlocking, which he actually got, and it actually controls part of the layout. So when you run the layout, you have to have somebody out there moving the interlocking panels.
Well, I feel better about myself. I'm not as insane as these people. Well, that is the show for this evening. We'll catch up with David first thing next week when we're into August as time marches on. We had a very comprehensive show this evening and a lot of presentations, and I thank everybody for putting in the time to present this evening. And see you next time.